How are you supposed to know who's in the right and who's in the wrong? Mary is trying really hard to be sensitive and available to her husband, John, but he will not get his feet back under him and get reorganized emotionally. Is he in the wrong for wanting her to be more sensitive for a longer period of time? Or is she in the wrong for wanting and expecting him to get back on his feet and feeling okay again? Hi, I'm Dr. Denim Slade, and we're going to explore how attachment and personality or temperament influence and interact with each other to determine whether or not a situation is handled in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. It can be really difficult to understand who's in the wrong and who's in the right in different situations. With the couple that I mentioned just a minute ago, temperament is a really important part of this. John is an E, and E's are motivated by excellence and exactness. E's want to figure out the very best way to do something. And in this couple that I was working with, he had a really challenging situation with his family of origin, and he was trying to figure out the best way to handle the situation, and he wasn't quite sure how to handle it yet. And the situation was really bothering him, so he was really upset, he was sad, he was frustrated, he was a little bit embarrassed by some of the things that had happened, and he wasn't ready to do anything about it yet because his E brain hadn't figured out the best way to do it. And even the things that he thought were the best ways to handle it, he wasn't sure when would be the right way to do it or who he should talk to. If he should talk to his sister, or if he should talk to his mom, or if he should talk to his dad. And so he was unsettled in terms of how best to handle the situation. What he was doing really well was he was choosing to turn to his wife. Mary is his secure base. And when we are upset emotionally, when we're disorganized emotionally, it's healthy. We're supposed to turn to our attachment figures. And so John, practicing the things that we'd been working on in coaching, he was practicing turning to her. Unfortunately, he wasn't getting reorganized emotionally. And to understand this dilemma, it's important to understand what attachment is supposed to do. The attachment system is supposed to take us from an emotionally distraught, an emotionally upset or disorganized situation back to a reorganized situation. So when we're sad, the attachment system is supposed to help us get unsad, get back in a happy place again or in a settled place again. When we're embarrassed or when we're lonely or when we're anxious or when we're feeling really good, the attachment system is supposed to take us from an emotionally disorganized place back to a reorganized state. And when it's functioning well, it does that. And the primary mechanism, the primary piece of that is what we call a secure base. And a secure base is simply feeling like somebody's there for you. It's having a place where you get to go, where you get to matter, and where you get to feel safe with somebody. So a secure base is defined as a safe haven to go to, a soft place to land. It's also a launch pad, and both of those are really important. A secure base catches you, kind of wipes your blood off or brushes you off, and then gets you back in the game. And it's not functioning the way it's supposed to if it doesn't do either of those things. If it's not a safe place for you to go and to be vulnerable, to cry, to be upset, and it's also not doing what it's supposed to do if you don't get reorganized and springboard back into development, back into life. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mary. Mary is a primary C, and C stands for comfort and connection. C's are motivated by comfort, comfortable clothes, comfortable furniture, comfortable feelings. And C's struggle with things that are intense or discomfort in general. The primary process for the C brain is wanting to get and stay settled emotionally. And so when a C is in a situation where it's unsettled, it feels like a sandstorm, or like when you step into a lake and all the sediment gets all disheveled. That's what it feels like to a C when things become unsettled emotionally. And what the C wants is for things to get settled again and to stay settled. Mary, really practicing trying to be a secure base. How do you be a secure base? You be a secure base by being sensitive and available when your partner is in need. When somebody comes to you, you make room for them, you put things down, you put your phone down, you turn off the TV, you make yourself available, and you respond sensitively to them during that time. Mary was very much trying to do that with John. She was making herself available, trying to catch him in this frustrating situation. But after he kept coming back around, not launching, so he was appropriately going to her like he should have been, and she was catching him like she should have been. So the secure base was functioning in the first part of its job, which was being a safe haven. She was being a very soft place for him to land. What was breaking down is that the secure base wasn't functioning in the second aspect or second half of what a secure base is, which is to get him back in the game, to get him launched. So as he kept staying disorganized and kept coming back to her wanting continued support without launching, she began to have some compassion fatigue. And she was trying to catch him, and she was trying to be there, because remember, what the C wants is settled. He wasn't getting settled, and the situation wasn't getting settled. It was staying emotionally intense, which is really hard for a C to sit in that kind of emotional unsettlement for extended periods of time. So in this situation, who's in the right and who's in the wrong? How do you decide? In order to understand that, it's really important to understand that attachment is how we connect and temperament is how we are wired to be. So in this situation, actually, neither Mary or John was in the wrong. This is really a great example of how temperament influences attachment. An E has a really hard time moving before they feel confident that they're going to do something the right way. What the E does is to think through things very thoroughly and to settle on the best way. It doesn't matter if it's how to do a surgery, how to organize the garage, how to clean a toilet. What the E brain does is to think about whatever it's researching. Its quest is to figure out the very best way to do whatever it's thinking about. And then the E has this tremendous ability to grind and to sit in discomfort in order to be able to do something the best way, the right way that they've identified. For John in this situation, he could sit and grind and sit in the intensity and the discomfort of what he was feeling for a very long time. And E's predictably stall movement if they don't feel confident that they're going to be able to do it the right way. If they don't feel like they have sufficient resources, whether that's time or money, or in this case with John, knowing exactly what the right thing to do in this situation that was causing him distress was, and whether he should address it with his sister or with his mom or with his dad, and not knowing exactly what to do, and then also not feeling like the timing was really good. As an E was stuck, he was stalled, waiting for the ideal scenario to be able to move forward. Well, think about what that does, and what that did for the C, for his C wife. C's want things to get settled as quickly as they can, and they stay emotionally kind of distraught and unorganized until things feel settled. In fact, when a C gets disorganized or unsettled emotionally, the C brain will sit and ruminate and stew on that, trying to get it settled. Temperament really was getting in the way of the attachment system being able to function in the way that the attachment system is supposed to function. Because how that's supposed to look is pretty simple. You get disorganized emotionally, you vulnerably turn toward your primary attachment figure, toward your secure base. Totally healthy to do that. When the attachment figure responds with sensitivity and availability, then you get reorganized emotionally and you return to exploration. And the attachment system has done its job. It's taken you from a disorganized state back to a reorganized state and gotten you back in the game. Pretty simple, actually. But you can see here how John's E-ness and Mary's C-ness complicated the simplicity of what we call attachment moments. We call those moments when somebody gets disorganized emotionally and is in need emotionally, we call those attachment moments. And incidentally, just getting good at recognizing attachment moments is a hugely important thing in being healthy, both personally and in your relationships. John's mistake in this scenario was not allowing himself to get reorganized emotionally. He was only letting the secure base do half of its job. He was really taking advantage, in a good way, he was taking appropriate advantage of Mary catching him and the safe haven component of the secure base. He was doing that totally appropriately. What he wasn't doing was using it as a launch pad. His E temperament was getting in the way of him taking action. And so then the attachment system could only do half of its job. And so in this scenario, the solution for John would have been and was for him to recognize what healthy is in this situation, which is to go get organized and then launch. Recognizing this predictable challenge of the way his E-brain works, and then choosing to use the support that Mary was providing as both motivation and support to take action, to decide what he was going to do, and then to actually take steps to go talk to somebody, either whether that be his sister or his mom or his dad, but to use that support of the attachment system to actually take action, thus actually confronting and compensating for some of the predictable challenges that his E temperament was introducing into the situation. So for Mary, was she in the wrong for getting compassion fatigue? Was she in the wrong for being tired of John continuing to come to her? When you're the secure base, is it your job just to keep catching and keep catching and keep catching? No, it's not. Mary actually wasn't in the wrong in this situation. She had shown up really well for him, and she had caught him multiple times in very short succession over the same issue, which was really taxing her C temperament and keeping her in this unsettled place. What her solution was just to get him to try to take any action. And so she's like, just disengage from the family. Disengage from your family and don't do anything about it. Or do something about it. But she was totally justified in wanting the secure base to do what the secure base is supposed to do. She was totally justified in catching him well and wanting him to then spring forward into action. So what do we take away from this situation? If you understand how your temperament works, then you're much better able to work with both the strengths and the challenges of your temperament and the temperaments of your partner so that it doesn't get in the way of healthy functioning. So how do you know who's in the wrong or who's in the right? The real enemy here wasn't Mary or John. It's really tempting, and we've all done it, to only see things from our perspective and to want there to be somebody who's right and somebody who's wrong. And that's why it is so important for you to understand your personality and your temperament, because in order for attachment to go well, which is so important in having healthy relationships, you've got to understand how your personality and how the temperament of your partner is dynamically affecting how you show up during these important attachment moments. To find out what your core temperament is, click on the link and take the free assessment to find out if you're a C, like Mary, or if you're an E, like John, or if you happen to be an O or an R. Do you want to stop trying to fix yourself or your partner and finally really understand yourself and them and how you're wired to connect? Take the core assessment today and find out what your core temperament is.